Welcome back. On today's video, we're talking about something that's very applicable to today's world where money is tight. We're going to talk about how to get a good deal. Now, in today's video, we're going to focus specifically on finding a deal in the home and car purchase or car repair type world, but it applies to a lot of different things. So let's jump right in. If we were looking to buy a used car, I hopped over here on a website and it talks about the average price for a used car in today's world is $25,180. The great news is that's down, I believe, by about $10,000 from a few years ago, but it's still a significant purchase in most people's lives. If you want to know how to negotiate a deal, something that's very helpful to know is how much money, how much profit the dealer has or the person selling that car has in that car. So on this website named spyne.ai, S-P-Y-N-E.ai, it talks about the average markup on a used car and says that the average range for dealers is between 10 and 35%. That's a very, very wide margin. Knowing that when you're negotiating the price of a used car could significantly help you out. Here's how. So for example, let's bring up a calculator. With the average price being $25,180, let's drop that number down and say that the dealer buys the car for $20,000. If he marks that car up by 10%, let's multiply it by 110% to give us that actual price. That profit, or the profit margin, is going to be $2,000, where he's going to sell it for $22,000. However, if that same $20,000 car is marked up by 35%, that car is now going to be $27,000, leaving a $7,000 profit margin. Knowing this type of information gives you some good opportunity to negotiate that price down. Now, the dealer's not going to tell you what his profit margin is. That would be stupid. But what you can do is research similar cars, research the private party market, understand what cars you're going for, and then arm yourself with that information going in. When I've gone into shop for used cars, if I go to a dealer, a lot of times what I will do is print out or take on my phone other web pages. I'll have web pages open of what those other cars are selling for, so that when they tell me I'll never get another deal or never get a better deal like that, I can pull up information and show them, well, there's a car here, they're selling for less than yours with better specs. We need to negotiate. And you have to be willing to walk away. So that is one example. Now, the other thing to understand, if you're looking at home repairs, the average general contractor markup, what we've seen, or what this website called method.me shows, is between 15 to 20%. There are some that are much, much higher than that. And understanding how that works can help you significantly figure out how to save money on those repairs. Now, here's an anecdotal story. I had a roof put on a property recently, it was a couple of years ago, and it was a roof that was not very common. It was a flat roof on a residential property. Now, in some parts of the country, those are very common. Where I'm at, they're not as common. I started calling roofing companies, and the prices that I was getting ranged from over $20,000 for a roof to down about $15,000. So there was a huge swing in that profitability or the price. Now, in asking the different companies what type of materials they were using and educating myself on what was going on, I also ran into contractors who said no, they would not do it. When I asked for referrals from those contractors, they turned me on to a company that did a lot of the work, and what I found out was, with this type of roofing in this market, most of the general contractors would sub the work out to one of two companies. The reason they would do that is they weren't familiar with the type of work, but they also took a very significant profit haircut off the top, and then they would warrant the work for future type of stuff. But by going through the other company, I believe I was able to get that roof, that same $20,000 roof, for about $13,000, just by doing some research and understanding what the options were. So here's several things that I've come up with when we're looking to get good deals. And this specifically applies to home and car repairs, but it does apply to other major purchases. The number one item is identify the problem. With the roofing example, for example, if a roof was not necessary, if the whole roof hadn't been on that roof for 20 plus, 30 plus years, it was pretty bad, maybe patching the roof would have been a better option. Just finding out where the leaks are and patching it, and then saving money for the roof at a later time. In this particular example, the housing market was extremely hot. Contractors were going like crazy, and when contractors get super busy, sometimes what I found is contractors will give you what I call a make me do it price. Make me do it, where they don't really want to do the work, they don't have time for the work, but if you pay them some crazy amount of money, they will be more than willing to do that. I've seen that happen in a number of situations with different contractors, and people do pay crazy prices where if they would wait or shop around or do other things, they can find a much better price. Number two is identify options. And when I say identify options, it's not always just the obvious option. We're going to get to that more here in a second. But identify what your options are. Is it working with contractors? Is it doing the work yourself on certain car repairs or certain other things that maybe you can do as opposed to paying someone a ridiculous amount of money? What are your current options? You can Google those options. As part of that, though, learning, researching, and analyzing what you see out there. What are the options? What are different things that can happen? What makes this a fix? What really fixes your problem and gets the job done? We've seen a lot of different opportunities. For example, we had an issue with a deck at one point where it was not supported right. And in talking to contractors, because the repair was odd, it was different and unique, and a lot of contractors weren't used to doing structural repairs, and this deck supported a part of a home, the contractors gave us price ranges anywhere from about $20,000 to $100,000 depending on how they wanted to do the repair. What became important for us in that instance was to go out and hire a structural engineer. We had to spend some money, which in some cases is very important, but by spending that money we identified that it did not need to come, the whole house or half the house didn't need to come down. We just needed to structurally reinforce things and build it better. And by doing that, we were able to get prices on the lower end because we identified the options. We essentially general contractor to GC'd the project ourselves, and we're able to get it done in a very, very stable manner that saved us, anywhere from about $5,000 to $80,000. It was crazy. So learn, research, analyze, call people, call experts, and be willing to spend a little bit of money if you need to on some of those major repairs. Here's the one that I really like, is create new options. What does that mean? Well, it means look and find what your options are, but maybe reframe the whole conversation or the look at the repair. If you are having a engine rebuilt in your car, for example, I've seen a lot of these where you go to a dealer, the dealer says, well, you have to rebuild the engine, it's going to cost you $7,000, $8,000, $12,000. Maybe you can find a good used engine with a warranty actually that you just swap in. That requires significantly less work than rebuilding an engine. And even though it will not be a new engine, if it has a warranty in it and the warranty is another 12 months, chances are that engine's going to go a lot longer than that because all of the issues will have been worked through. That's an example of making another option. Researching, I've found that if I don't stop necessarily at getting 3 bids, and this only really makes sense if you're doing a major purchase and you're going to save thousands of dollars because you don't want to shop around for a stick of gum, obviously. But you can find different options. A couple of things that I've noticed in the contractor world is the companies that advertise the most are also the companies that typically charge the most. The reason is they've got a lot of overhead for advertising and infrastructure and cars with wraps on them and all that other stuff, where there may be a great local contractor who, and we have this with plumbing contractors in our area, who does good work, consistent work, and they charge less because they don't have the overhead. So understanding that dynamic in your market can save you literally thousands of dollars. So make sure that you are identifying the problem. You know what the problem even is. Even if you have to get multiple contractors to come out to give you a quote, a lot of contractors will give free estimates. Now I found there's exclusions to that. Plumbers and electricians generally will charge if they come out just regardless. But identifying the problem can be critical. Know what you're actually dealing with. Know if you're dealing, for example, if you have an electrical problem, is it just a bad outlet, or do you have bad breakers, or do you need to replace your entire electrical panel? And don't just trust one entity to give you that information. Identify what your options are, learn, research, and analyze, and possibly create new options by reframing what you want the solution to be. And then here's a critical one, is track details. It's easy for us when we're doing research, when we're calling different companies, to lose track of what one company has said. And if we have a list and a breakout of the price, who they are, the contact information, what their solution was, and the time that they could get to it, that can give us some incredible power to know who are the good contractors, and also in the future to know who you want to go back with. This one's a little bit tricky. I've put down be reasonably unreasonable. What does that mean? Well, sometimes it's okay to be unreasonable. Sometimes it's okay to say, well, I don't think that I want to pay that much, I want to pay X for a price. But you have to be, so being unreasonable, especially when someone else tells you you're being unreasonable, is okay as long as you've done your homework and you know you're within a reasonable range. If you're a couple $1,000s lower on a price than a used car dealer wants to sell it to you for, that's great. But if you want to get a brand new car that should cost $30,000 for $5,000, that's unreasonable. You're not going to be able to get there. And then the final piece is, once you've done all the research, once you know everything, once everything's in your price budget, you should be ready, and you need to be ready to make a decision. Because if you find a good deal, if you find something that is a better price than others, and you feel solid about the contract, or you feel like you're getting a great deal on a car, or whatever it is, you've got to be willing to make that decision, take that option off the table. Otherwise, it won't last long. Good deals rarely do. Great deals rarely do. So those are the steps that I have used in a number of situations to find a solution. Just a side note is, some people say get 3 estimates on home repairs or other things, and I found that yes, 3 estimates are good, but sometimes, especially if you're willing to save thousands, it may take 10, 12 phone calls to different people to find out the best deal that you can get with the best contractor. So be persistent, stick with it. If you do these, and if you follow those steps, you can get a great deal on many, many things and save yourself thousands of dollars, and that thousands of dollars then can be invested for your future. I hope this has been helpful. If it has, give us a like down below. If you'd like to see more content like this, do consider subscribing to the channel, and if you know someone this may benefit, please do share. Thanks for being here. We'll see you on the next one.